Hey, what's going on? My name is Andy Monroe. Welcome back to the channel. And this video is going to be a little different than the other videos I've posted on this channel. Instead of having something visual for you to look at, going through a deck or kind of doing like a how-to, this is going to be just kind of a freestyle on how I think AI is going to change the events industry for both virtual and in-person events. So I'm just going to kind of riff, go for it, talk about my thoughts. So apologies if it's not as visually stimulating as some of my other videos. But figured, yeah, just turn the camera on and talk about AI for a little bit and how AI is going to change the events industry. Because I've been doing some research on YouTube, and there's a few videos out there about like different tools you can use for AI, or to incorporate AI into your event planning process, or how to leverage AI to create better events. And those are great videos, but one, they get outdated very fast because tools change and things change. But this one's gonna be more like philosophical, you could say, just like where I think AI is going to plug into the events industry and how I think the events industry is going to look in the future once AI is much stronger and much more integrated than it is today. So with all that being said, I want to start off by talking about kind of how I view AI in general and trends like AI. I've only been around for so many, earth-shattering trends. Like you could say, like media buying and running ads on social media was one that I got to experience early on. But this is kind of how I view like these trends. And a mentor of mine actually introduced me to this way of thinking once. And we were at dinner and he was talking about, I think he was actually talking about AI in this example, but he's used that example a few times, or this example. And he was talking about how AI is like a wave in the ocean, and you are in the ocean, and you can either fight against the wave and try to change the wave, or swim against the wave, or struggle against the wave. You can do your best to resist the forces of this wave, or you can simply accept that it's a wave and that you can't change it. And you can grab a surfboard, and you can just ride the wave into the beach and save all your energy, save your time, and have a better experience overall than you would if you were fighting against the wave. And I think that's how AI is, and that's how the internet was. That's how media buying is, and like paid ads and social media, websites and funnels. And now we are experiencing this with AI. It's something that's not going to go away. It's something that none of us can really change. It's been introduced to our society. It's been introduced to us both from a consumer perspective, just using it in our free time to go search stuff and find out useless information about whatever we want, but also from a business perspective as well. Optimizing businesses, leveraging it as a tool to make our lives as entrepreneurs easier. You could say that we have adopted AI as a society, and also it's gotten to the point where you just can't really deny it. Like, it's so powerful and so intelligent, and we're just in the beginning, which is kind of terrifying, but it's there and you can't really deny its existence. You got to ride the wave instead of resist it. So that's why at Bullish Events we've been spending a lot of time thinking about how we can leverage AI to enhance the events, the experiences that we are creating, but also make our lives easier and streamline our processes of creating virtual and in-person events. But I want to touch on a few different categories of events in the events industry that I think AI is going to significantly disrupt. But the first thing I want to talk about really is just acceleration. Like, if you could kind of summarize everything I'm about to talk about in this video down to acceleration. Like, AI is currently and is going to continue to accelerate the entire process of creating an event, delivering an event, marketing an event, and monetizing an event. Whether it's web design, copywriting, attendee communication, whatever it is, all of these things are going to be significantly streamlined or completely outsourced by AI. On top of that, AI significantly accelerates the actual process of creating an event. An example of this is searching venues and sourcing venues. A large part of somebody that's hosting an event, whether you are hosting an event for your business and yourself, or you're hiring a company or contractor to host the event for you, whatever you're doing, a large part of that is finding a venue to actually host the event in. And back in the day, I say back in the day, I've only been in the events industry for like 4 years at this point, but I can't imagine what it was like 10, 20, 30 years ago. But like even a few years ago, you'd go online, you'd kind of search through all the venues in the state. Like, maybe you're doing like an event in Austin, Texas, and you would search event venues in Austin, Texas, and you'd kind of go through everything, and then you'd go to Cvent, and they had their own little venue searching tool, and there were a few different tools online, but it was kind of like a manual job that you had to do. You had to dedicate time and spend a couple hours, maybe a couple hours a week for a few weeks, looking through venues and talking to venues and submitting RFPs and all of that stuff. But now you can leverage AI. I use ChatGPT. I'm sure you can use any of the other ones out there, but you can have ChatGPT generate a list of venues for you, and you could even narrow it down. You can narrow it down to like the location and like the states and stuff, but you can even do like how much capacity they have, how much square footage of event space do they have, what's their food and beverage minimums, all this criteria that you used to have to ask the the venues for, you can actually find this through AI now, and it really narrows down your list of like the venues that you can reach out to, because it used to be super annoying if you would reach out to a venue and they'd be like, oh yeah, we don't have enough space, or our food and beverage minimum is extremely expensive, and there was a lot of time, there's a big delay between reaching out and submitting an RFP and actually getting information back. But now with AI, you can gather some initial information so that you don't even reach out to those venues that you should be considering for your event. You only reach out to the ones that fit your criteria, which has been a game changer. And it also just makes the process way easier. And I know there are a few softwares out there that already exist where you can do all of this inside of one platform. You know, the platform will generate venues for you, and it'll also submit RFPs for you, and it'll get the RFPs back, and it'll kind of like sift through them and give you the winners and discard the losers. And it's all AI that's powering that. And this is right now. Like, imagine what it's going to be like in 5, 10, 15 years. Like, it's going to be extremely powerful. So it's something that we definitely need to be surrendering to as people inside of the events industry, and figuring out how we can leverage it as much as possible. Okay, so you can kind of see how AI is just going to significantly accelerate everything that has to do with events. The next thing I want to talk about is actually marketing. How is AI going to disrupt event marketing? The first easy point to touch on here is also acceleration, like making ads, whether it's photo ads or video ads, copywriting, all these tiny aspects of event marketing that used to take a lot of time and used to be a full-time role is going to be either streamlined or outsourced by AI. That being said, I think where AI is going to really disrupt event marketing and really improve event marketing is the overall strategy of the way that you market your event. Now, on this channel, we talk a lot about the importance of understanding your avatar, understanding the pain points of your avatar, their current situation, their desired outcome, and positioning your event as the thing that will take them from their current situation to their desired outcome. Like, that's why people buy. Somebody's going to attend your event because you are going to solve a painful problem for them. That's why people buy things, is to escape their painful current situation. And working with AI, you can really gain some really interesting insights onto who your avatar is. And you can feed AI data based off your previous purchasers, based off your email list, based off your ad data, whatever it is. You can feed your data to AI and have a conversation back and forth with it to give it more context. And it can assist you in nailing down your event strategy, your event marketing strategy, what pain points you should target, what hooks you should use. And it can even help you narrow down who your avatar is and who your ICP is. All this stuff that used to be purely on you to figure out internally by, going to a whiteboard or going to a Google Doc and just brainstorming. But now you essentially have an assistant or an agent that can help you find these conclusions and can give you access to insights that you probably wouldn't have had, especially if it has data to interpret and data to read. So leveraging AI to enhance your marketing campaigns for your events is going to be extremely powerful. It's already happening. You can already do this with even a simple tool like ChatGPT, but in the future, it's not going to be an option to use tools like this. It's going to be mandatory. So that's how I think AI is going to disrupt the event marketing space. Now moving on to monetization. So obviously on this channel as well, we talk a lot about event monetization, and I work primarily with coaches, consultants, and community owners, and we typically leverage an offer or an upsell as a way to monetize events, as well as ticket sales and sometimes sponsorships. But having an offer to present to your attendees and give them a chance to work with you further after the event, that is our favorite way to monetize events. It's very powerful. And similar to marketing, AI can be your partner in crime or your assistant, your agent, whatever it is, to help you refine your offer and nail down your pitch, your offer presentation, how to engineer the content to flow directly into your offer and your pitch. All of that stuff that we talk about on this channel that we kind of do manually now is probably going to be outsourced by AI. Even inside of our incubator, we have a GPT that we built to talk to you back and forth to help you figure out what your event content is going to be. So it helps you figure out the problems that you're going to be solving. It helps you figure out the method, identity, environmental blockages that you need to solve in order for your attendees to be ready to buy your offer. All the stuff that we talk about, we are starting to incorporate these AI tools into our incubator to help our clients streamline the process and just make it a lot easier on them. And when it comes to monetizing events, that's where I see the application. I see it as a partner in crime in refining and creating new monetization strategies, new offers, and really just building out your monetization strategy with you instead of you having to do it by yourself. One way I like to think about AI, this might not be biologically accurate, but this is just kind of how I think about it. So inside of our minds, we have neural pathways, and these neural pathways are communicating with each other, and that's kind of how we understand information. That's how we think. That's how we come up with ideas. It's how we come up with breakthroughs. It's all happening in these neural pathways inside of our mind. And when I think about AI, it's almost like a whole other set of neural pathways that you get to kind of plug your brain into, because AI really does a good job at offering you different perspectives and just coming up with ideas that you might not have thought of by yourself, or maybe you would have, but just sometime down the road. But with AI, it kind of just gives you all of these different perspectives that you can just plug into immediately instead of waiting for yourself to generate them on your own. And you probably would have come to these conclusions at some point, but AI just really accelerates accelerates that process. So when you're going through these creative phases, like when you're coming up with your marketing strategy, or you're trying to come up with the plan for your event, like how are you going to monetize your event, and what's the content going to look like, and what's the transformation I'm going to take my attendees on, and how am I going to make this an amazing experience for the people that are coming to my event. All this stuff that you once had to come up with on your own, you can now just plug into this other set of neural pathways, this other assistant, this agent, this friend that gets to help you out, and it gets to build it with you instead of you having to do it by yourself. The last thing I want to touch on is attendee experience. So how is AI going to change the attendee experience at events? Now, I keep saying this, but we're already seeing this happen. But AI is going to make the attendee experience at events much more immersive, and it's going to make it much easier to digest and synthesize the experience. This is already happening at theme parks and museums, but having AI assist the attendees as they go through the experience. And also, instead of relying on the attendee to remember everything that they learned at the event and to kind of write down everything they learned in a notebook, you can leverage AI to synthesize all the information and make sure that the easily digestible nuggets are communicated to the attendees, whether it's during the event or after the event. Okay, so those are a few categories of the events industry that I think are going to be disrupted by AI, but there are a few caveats I want to talk about. The first one is, I've heard this a lot and I actually believe this, is AI really only gets you 80% of the way there. I think a big misconception, at least right now where we are with AI, is that you can just completely outsource everything with AI, and we're getting there. It definitely can reduce the workload, but I do think that us as humans, like, we are the ones that can critically think and we have original thoughts. AI really is just referencing, and it doesn't have the ability to critically think. So we need to be the ones that go and we check through the work and make sure that it's accurate and kind of add our human element to it right before we deliver the final product. Even when it's like writing emails, AI can write an amazing email, but it's still at the root of it, it's still going to sound a little bit like AI. So what I like to do for my emails is I'll have AI write most of the email. I'll kind of give it like the ideas and the context. It'll turn it into an email. Then I'll read through it and I'll change a few things to make sure it sounds like my voice, just because I want it to fit my brand. So in my opinion, the best use case is leveraging AI to get 80% of the way there, and then you can do the final 20%, which is much better than doing all 100%. You now have a tool that will get you up until that last 20%, where humans, I think, are the ones that still need to execute on that, which maybe that will change in the future. Maybe AI will be so advanced in 15 to 20 years that everything can be outsourced, which that might be kind of a creepy world to live in, but that could be where we're headed. And something else I want to talk about is AI will arguably make hosting events easier due to the acceleration factor, and how the amount of work that goes into hosting an event is going to be significantly reduced due to AI being there to help. That being said, even though we are outsourcing stuff with AI, I still think it's important to understand the fundamentals. For example, it's important to understand what makes an event convert well, like what makes an attendee enter into an experience and end up buying your product at the end. Like, what goes into that? What stimuli needs to be configured in order for that to happen? And yes, AI can help with this, but it's important for you to understand, because like I said, right now at this point in artificial intelligence, we're at the acceleration phase. So AI is just making things happen faster and more streamlined. But if the fundamentals are broken and the strategy is broken, then you're just gonna be pouring gasoline on a fire that isn't meant to grow. You need to understand the strategy behind it and then pour gasoline on that fire. And the same goes for marketing. If you understand what gets people to click on an ad and what gets people to go and watch your VSL and what gets people to go and book a call with you and what gets people to go and buy your product, if you understand those different types of stimuli, then you can just leverage AI to accelerate the creation of all those stimuli. But if you don't understand what is working, like I said, you're just gonna be pouring gasoline on a fire that wasn't meant to grow. And finally, the last point I want to make is that with AI making everything easier, it becomes more and more crucial for you as an event host, someone who's going to be leveraging events for your coaching, consulting, or community business, or your business in general. I'm not sure who's watching this video, but it becomes very important for you to strategically position your event to stand out from all the noise, because as it gets more easier to host events and more streamlined and more accelerated, more and more people can get into this game, and it's going to be a very noisy atmosphere. But that doesn't mean events are going to stop working. That just means you need to figure out how to stand out from everybody else that's going to be hosting events at the same time. And that's something that we talk a lot about on this channel, and that's what I help my clients with, especially, is positioning their event as a unique opportunity that is solving a painful problem, so that they don't get blended in with all the other people in their industry that are hosting events. All right, I know that was a pretty unconventional video. I just kind of monologued for 15 to 20 minutes, however long this video is. I hope it was insightful. If you have some other thoughts on AI and how AI is going to change the events industry, I would love to hear your thoughts down below in the comments. Also, if you are a coach, consultant, or community owner that is currently hosting events but not seeing the results that you want, or you want to start hosting events but just don't know where to start, make sure you click the link down below. And finally, if you could like this video and subscribe to our channel, that would help us out a ton. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.